So the upcoming Slough Creek episode of WolfQuest will have 3 seasons. It starts in February in the winter, goes through spring, and ends in July in the summertime. So that's quite a lot of environmental change over those 6 months. But as I work on the environment in the different seasons, I realize that spring is actually 2 seasons in one. Because in early spring, it's still, it's high elevation, things are still half frozen, and so I've set it up with a lot of snow still on the ground. So there's a lot of ground exposed, but it's pretty brown still, and there's a lot of snow patches. And on the northern slopes across the valley there, you can see that those are still pretty snow covered because they're in the shade, not getting a lot of solar intensity. But then when I got to the water bodies, it became another question, because in March, this is totally frozen over, snow covered with ice and snow. And later in the spring, it's open water, but it's sort of weird to go directly from snow and ice covered to open water. So looking back at some photos I'd taken of mountain lakes, we realized that, well, yeah, it is a gradual process, and there was a lot of ice on these water bodies in the early spring period. So we brought in a 3D artist named Donovin Peterman to make us some ice floes. And he made a very nice variety of sizes and shapes, and I can use these to arrange them how I like. Well, in this kind of situation, generally at this time of year, the southern shore here is going to be a little more in shade, so there'll be more ice over here, but there's going to be some big chunks out in the middle. And I can just make some various duplicates of this and arrange these out in all sorts of ways. Happy little ice floes, right? All in a nice ice-filled lake. Donovan made all the standard textures that you use for a model like this, but these are tricky because some of these are pretty large things. Here, how do we get some scale for the wolf? So we can see they're, 20, 30 meters across. And that's tricky with models because you want to have good detail up close. And these look good, but when you get close, they are a little blurry. So I'm going to switch to a different shader, which will let me layer on multiple textures at different resolutions and tiling patterns to help me make the ice floe look good both at a distance and up close. So here you can see it looks different. Same textures, but a different shader, which affects how the textures react to light. Now we still have this problem with it being blurry up close, so now I can switch to a different texture for the main texture on the surface of the ice. But the point here is that I want to increase the tiling of it, how many times it's repeated across it. And this is a nice texture that tiles nicely. It doesn't have any obvious repeating patterns, and so that gives us a little more going on here on the surface of the ice floe, but we can do more than that. I'm going to use another texture that's more kind of blue icy look for the top level of this, and here I'm going to assign that and then just bring it up here. Oh, that's cool. So you can go all the way to maximum, but I think I'm going to go not to maximum, but to something, because I want some of this, I want to blend the two materials basically, so it adds more variety. So you can see it's using some other, it's actually the normal map, the bumpy map from the main surface to determine where this new bluish texture gets drawn, and I can actually adjust that. Use it so it doesn't apply at all, or bring it up so it's maximum spread or somewhere in between. I can also control how much it kind of rolls, spills off the edges, but I don't really want that. I want this kind of mottled appearance. And then I can also have a special bumpy map on the top, which is also going to be at a higher resolution. So I can bring that up. And there we go. That gives some nice detailing and surface roughness to the top, doesn't it? And then you can still get close and it gets kind of blurry. So I'm going to add one more texture, which is for a detail texture. And I'm going to bring up that intensity here. There, something like that maybe. So that kind of fills in more detail here in these wider areas, which is where the main texture is showing through. And I can do the same thing with a detail normal or bumpy map. You can see that's getting more roughness and definition. So that looks better than before, doesn't it? I was thinking it should have a little bit of a little bluishness, so I'm going to give it a little bit of a tint to both the main texture and these kind of detail textures. on this top texture. Now there I can really make it very blue. It's too much, I think. So just enough to give it a little more of that blue ice look. Okay, so another thing about ice is that it's kind of shiny. So I want to adjust this so if I get it with the sun behind it, so you can adjust that kind of wetness of it. And we want it to be kind of getting a little wet in the sun there. So that's with no wetness, and there's some, that's about right. And then what we can do is take our wolves out, swim across. Our mate coming. These ice floes sit pretty low in the water, 90% is underwater. So there's just a little bit sticking out. And so in some places, our wolf can get up and go on them. My mate's back there swimming back and forth. I think she's gotten onto ice floes before. It's possible she is not aware that these are climbable yet. So I'll have to look at that closer. So these are looking pretty good already, though I think there needs to be more of them. We need to do some variation and fill this in more. But most of the floes are flat. They're just the remains of the ice-covered lake that's in the process of breaking up. But there are some more complex shapes, and so Donovan made some of those too. And so these you can also climb out on. I've been experimenting with a little bit different look on these, a little more kind of a little rougher surface. You can see still kind of icy looking, but they're more pitted, I guess. So there's parts that have kind of melted and frozen over again here, and parts that are more in the process of melting and freezing and pitted. Oh, now she knows how to do it. Yeah, here she comes. Maybe this is a chilly place to have a afternoon nap in April, but it'll work. And Tommi, our lead developer, always thinking ahead, realized that he needed to write some special code, so if you happen to go to sleep on an ice floe right when the seasons are changing, he's put in some things to prevent it from melting out from underneath you, and you find yourself with a rude shock dumped into the water. So don't worry, that won't happen. So there you have it. For all of you out there who've been desperately wondering, will Slough Creek have ice floes in the spring? Now you know. And for everyone else, we hope this will be a nice little addition that you can explore while you're looking around for a den and getting ready for those pups.